My name is Rikke Hansen. I'm from Denmark, and I've been doing this project together with Barnabas Wetton, who was not able to be here today, but you will hear his voice during this presentation. This is a project that Barnabas and I have been talking about for 2 years, and we're always busy by teaching, work in our studio, but then we decided, okay, we have to do it. We have to find time to do this thing. And what I'm going to show you now is also, I'm also going to speak a little about methods to the students. So first of all, what is experimentation? The process of trying methods, activities to discover what effects they have. This is according to the Cambridge Dictionary. And Confucius said there's 3 methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. And I think we have to be aware about that we have to use all these 3 stages in terms of learning. But in this project, we are specifically focusing on the third one, which is the bitterest, and also this is where you may fail. When we started this project, we have no idea what we were going to do, and maybe it's going to be terrible, but anyways, whatever you are going to do, you will learn something from it. So don't be afraid of doing things, and be curious and try testing things. For those who know me, I'm really a big fan of John Cleese, not only for him as an actor and being funny, but he's been doing, for many years, studies on creativities. And what he's talking about is also an open and a closed mode. And in a closed mode, he means the mode that we are in the most of the time when we are at work. Inside of it, we have a feeling that there's a lot to be done, we need to get on with it, and we're not doing enough at all. It's a mode which we probably are a little impatient, only maybe with ourselves. It has a little tension and not much humor. In the closed mode, it's impossible to be creative. And unfortunately, this mode is, according to Cleese, the mode we spend most of our lives. So, and the other mode is the open mode. And the open mode is more relaxed, expansive, less purposeful, in which we're probably more contemplative, more inclined to humor. And consequences of that, more playful. In this mode, in which curiosity for its own sake can operate because we are not under pressure to get a specific thing done quickly. We can play, and that is what allows our natural creativity to surface. And I think it's important also to be aware of, you need both modes. You need the open mode in order to play and be creative, and you need the closed mode to get things done. I'm doing this with my students. We're doing a lot of workshops on tangible prototyping, and the open mode is really, in the beginning, difficult for them. When you're getting more and more experience, it's easier and easier to do. Because, of course, you are always afraid of that you're not making a good project or getting things in the right way. So, in this project, we allowed ourselves to be in this open-ended approach, and allowing ourselves to play without any specific purpose, by allowing experimental curiosity wherever it's going to take us. So now I'll just let Barnabas introduce the Planck Length project.
Planck length takes its name from the smallest measurable unit beyond which all classical physics breaks down and the world of quantum uncertainty unfolds. It marks the portal between our own utilitarian understanding of the world and all of that which lies beyond. In all its simplicity, it's a way of describing how we're trying to bring typography to the limits of its form and to the edge of narrative. It also takes its starting point in a fleeting conversation with someone who works at the top level of cybersecurity with MI5 and NSA. We'll call him John Underwood, but it's not his name. John Underwood spoke of an ongoing cyber war between Russia, China, and the West, and where he encountered enough code in a single pixel as he said, to take down a nuclear power station. He said, "We're at war in cyberspace." Although brief, the conversation led us to ask how typography might be challenged by such an insight. This specific narrative and its potential is the driving force of what we are trying to examine. And so we ask ourselves, how can we experiment with making typographies that take us to the very edge of the defining characteristics of our age? We contend that poetry, and interestingly, this is a word that derives from Greek and it means I create, is like politics and war, and one of the defining elements of what it means to be human. It stretches beyond the to let some light shine in. For us, in this project, the forming and creating of letters might be seen in the same way. As previously mentioned, we're curious about the following question. How can we experiment with making typography that transports us to the very edge of form? We're less concerned about legibility and more about creating a journey into technologies and narratives, and the two were always entwined.
We actually tried to write a letter to John Underwood in terms of asking him if it was possible to see how does this information look like in one single pixel. And by now we didn't get an answer, so we're still waiting for if it's possible for us to see. But this leads us to the conversation. How can we use the idea of pixels and grids and systems to do experimentations? And also, how do we work together? Because I'm trained as a graphic designer and Barnabas is trained as an artist. So how should we work together in doing this? And sending our work back and forth and letting each other work on top of each work. So one of the things we tried to do was establish a kind of working parameters in terms of looking into the different type. How are we going to work two-dimensional, three-dimensional? Is it going to be really, really tiny? Should it be giant? Are we working with both craft and digital? Which kind of tangibility should the letters have, and how should we comprehend them? So this is just a method or a model for us to using for our conversations when we were working on these typefaces. One of this inspiration came from Elsie Swenna. She's done this lettering handbook for hand stitches back in 1966. And there's a lot of different types of how to make the stitching. And we were really curious about these rotary alphabets. And we digitalized a lot of them. And this is one of them, made from this one, and then make it into puncture. And this was then made in laser cutting as puncture cards. And we did some different alphabets, also this one, and made these puncture cards, and simply using spray and then letting the grain decide how the letter will turn out. So this is 3 different types where we just lifted the paper and you get different density. And this is, then we took it into a computer again and we made this halftone alphabet. So it's getting more and more dense. And this we're talking about, we're going to use them for knitting or weaving with the different types. So this was one experiment. Another one was using this type and then try through Illustrator and Photoshop to see what happened when we digitalized it in different ways and using different experiments. And one we did was this one. And this, again, we took out of the computer and put it into laser cut. So we laser cut all the letters like this. And these are, I think, 8 centimeters high. And that's just to see again how far we can go with legibility. This is a bigger one, and this one was used in letterpress. Just to see how it turns out. And then we also did some 3D experimentations. Took it into Rhino. to put it into Rhino and see how we can make it more three-dimensional. And different experimentation with it. And again, some of them we just took them from the Rhino and digitalized it again. So it's not that legible, but just to see how it turns out. This one was a different way of using the A in the Rhino. And some of them we took and 3D printed them. This was also a different style. And then we took them to the print lab, some of them, and 3D printed in different materials, in PLA and resin. So this letter was printed in PLA. So this is a 3D printed version of what you saw previously. And this is just some pictures of it. I hope you can see this, the negative space, it's a B. And when you turn it, we have an A. So this was done by two letters, 2A, and then when you turn it, you have a B. And this one was more on the left side, higher A. It's done in resin, so you have a better printing resolution and a smoother surface. This one was just a test combining three letters, so you have an A, B, and a C, and it looks like this when you're going around with the camera. There's a letter A, and there's a letter B, and this is the B. And then also letter C. And then again, from this 3D printing, we tried to make some different experimentations. Barnabas, when he's working as an artist, he likes to use the scanner. So we took this letter and then again put it through the scanner to see how it would look like. So this is a scanned version of the 3D printing. And this is a different test. We tried to just press the letters through the negative space. This is the X, and then we 3D printed them as these cubics, and you can actually put them together. It's not the best. We have to do it again because the surface is not that good. But again, just to see how it looks like, and to experiment with it. This was some other letters, because we were talking about can we write with them, putting them together as well. And the last thing I'm going to show you is we wanted to try to make a bendable letter for some of these. So this one, it takes a really, I don't know, those of you who tried doing 3D printing, it takes a long time. And this letter, it has printing hours of 58 hours. And it was put on to print, and we thought, okay, then we have to wait for 2.5 days and see what comes out. And then unfortunately, there was a electricity break, so it didn't print all of it. So this was the first test. But by looking at it, we figured out, okay, we have to adjust some of the air inside, because when you want to make a letter bendable, it needs some air. So in a way, it was good we had this break, because then we could adjust it, and we had help from industrial students, from who helped us adjust these things. And then this is the 3D printed letter. It's 20 centimeters high, and it's bendable. Yeah, so this was some of the experimentations we did.
And with type development moving into new spheres of influence, such as gaming, 3D and virtual reality, what we've tried to do is combine the classical approach to type development with its emphasis on legibility and communicative precision, with the incorporation of narratives within a specific framework. Why? In order to start a new place of imagining where both principles can play themselves out. The arrival of mechanical type transformed society. Access to the relatively unrestricted information it was able to convey, including revolutionary ideas, transcended borders and transcended class. Growing literacy led to growing self-awareness. Nonetheless, the power of publishing was laborious and in the hands of the few. The advent of interconnected internet possibilities has changed the balance of communication in terms of ease and ubiquity. The burgeoning growth of the immersive, virtual reality is a fundamental game changer in terms of who and what we meet. Our efforts with the Planck project is to establish new working practices within the fields of typography that can lay the foundations for a new, immutable and tangible relationship between legibility and narrative, between artistry and design. If Confucius is right in saying that imitation is the easiest of the paths to wisdom, we contend that the experimentation and its inherent risks are its polar opposite. And for that approach to work best,
To sum up, this project is really about experimenting and just letting the curiosity taking us wherever it's going to take us. And I think we were talking about some of the things that we did. We never been thinking about it or sketching it if we have to do that first. But by using material and tactility and again working on top of each other's work, you get inspired and you do different things and you get new discussions. And I also think for the students, it's really, really important to, of course, work alone, but also work together with other people, work with different professions and getting inspired from them and learn from them. So that's one of the fun things we're doing when we are working together as an artist and a designer to see where we're going. So thank you.